Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Detlef Nauck, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Maria and Luciana Axente from PwC and Stephen Metcalfe, who is MP for Essex. And we start with a brief introduction and then go right into the chat. Maria, probably everybody has seen your keynote, but just in case, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Hello again. Thank you, Detlef. Maria Axente from PwC UK. I lead our efforts in responsible and ethical AI, and I work with both our clients and our internal projects and also external engagement to ensure that the right ethical values are aligned and considered when we develop and use AI.
Thank you, Maria. Stephen?
Thanks very much. Yes, I'm Stephen Metcalfe. I'm Member of Parliament for South Basildon and East Thurrock, but I also co-chair the all-party parliamentary group on artificial intelligence. An all-party group is exactly what it says. It's people from across the political spectrum coming together with to look at subjects that interest them. And about 4 years ago, there was lots of misinformation flying around Parliament regarding what AI was and wasn't, and all the various terms becoming interchangeable. And so we established the group to try and sort through some of that. And of course, over the last 4 years, we've moved from being deeply concerned potentially about the impact AI might have, in my case, on constituents, to being much more reassured about how this will augment humanity and work with us. But to do that, we need to address some of the ethical and issues that surround this and about public engagement and building trust. And I hope that this will play a small part in that.
Thank you very much, Steve. That's great. I would like to kick us off with a point, Maria, that you raised in your keynote. You said that data scientists should have like an ethical code like doctors. So, do you think that AI systems should be maybe regulated like medicines and come with a description of undesirable side effects?
Of course, no doubt about it. I think we have been proved that we have to move in that direction because we start using AI in so many different domains of lives that have a significant impact on people's lives. So we would have to do that. I heard some calls in US from experts and advocates to create an FDA for AI. Let's see what this in this part of the pond we can be doing, and how can we leverage some of the institutions we already have rather than creating new ones. But we will have to go in that direction, especially for high risk application. And while going on the high risk application, it seems to be the desired route for regulators, and the European Commission has the newest regulation on AI that's set to come in April, will follow this route. I think will allow us to at least separate the use cases that need more attention and more governance and thorough governance from the ones that we can be a little bit more relaxed, but definitely.
Thank you, Maria. Stephen, what's your view? Do you think that it's time for regulators to step in, or do you think self-regulation is the way to go?
I think there's a balance to be struck between the two, if I'm honest. And what we don't want to do is regulate too much that stifles innovation and growth, but certainly in high risk applications and applications that may in themselves may not be high risk but have a high social impact on individuals. I think therefore there is a necessity to make sure there is a framework that protects the public. An example of that might be an algorithm that determines access to benefits or access to housing. The social impact is massive. The risk of getting that wrong in and of itself isn't necessarily great, but it does have a huge impact on individuals. So I think there is a balance to be struck, and I hope that government, some of the organisations that are already operating in this space, and potentially people like the British Standards Institute can work together to find the right balance. As I say, I don't think every data scientist needs to have the same sort of, I think it probably would be useful to have some sort of ethical training across the board, but not necessarily to the same commitment that you might expect of a doctor if you're not working in a sphere that has that kind of impact. So it's getting that balance right, and that's why these discussions are important.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. We are seeing that for example, councils are venturing into applying AI, and we have seen the Home Office come out with a photo checker that was racially biased, and we have seen police authorities trialing AI systems. Is there enough advice and experience in the public sector for using AI, or do you see that there's a knowledge gap?
I think there is a huge knowledge gap, and I suspect that the range of expertise varies dramatically from organisation to organisation, from council to council. Some more forward-thinking councils may well have someone who is up to speed on all of this, who thinks about the ethical impact, who has established an ethics committee within their organisation to look at the safe deployment of AI. And then I suspect there are areas where there is not enough scrutiny from elected members because they don't necessarily understand the technology that they're being presented with. And so that's why I'm very keen that there is a much wider public debate about AI in general, its uses, its ethics, how we can ensure that people understand what we mean when we talk about ethics in AI and about data bias. One of the things I call for is, if you're going to train an AI, train an algorithm, make sure that the data you're training it for reflects the cohort that you want to use it on. So at least there's some link between the use and population. But this is a fast-moving field, and trying to keep up with this is quite difficult. But I think, as I say, we need a much wider public debate on it, and how and who should lead that. Maybe Maria has an idea on how we engage this, what sort of projects we can have with the public, because look where we've come in 4 years, give it another 5 years, 10 years, we'll be in a completely different space again. And we need to make sure everyone comes along with us.
Thanks, Stephen. What's your view, Maria? You mentioned like moratorium on face recognition. And so what is your view? How does the public sector work with AI?
I think, Stephen is absolutely right. There is a huge gap, but that's existing in the industry as well. We're talking about not just a sophisticated technology, but also we talk about scarcity of skills because they migrate towards a certain part of the economy, which is the tech sector, that allows or affords to pay very high salary. And as a result, regulators struggle, public sector struggle, all of us struggle, because we can't afford to pay the salaries that the big tech companies will pay. So I think we need several initiatives. The one that already happens from the tech companies to the rest of us, which is a democratization of data science, being able to create open source tools and frameworks that would allow more people to quickly get up to speed of being a citizen data scientist, because we also have to be very careful that we can't really produce data scientists at the industrial scale. So they will need to have that education. But secondly, the public engagement is crucially linked to understanding. So if there's not an understanding, how the machine works, because honestly, we don't have to educate everyone in society about machine learning or deep learning, but how the basic principles and how it's being used in some cases, so that there is a dialogue. And what has happened with the A-level algorithm has opened up, created a positive precedent. The fact that people, we're talking about young people in this case, they protested. They go on the street and say, we don't agree with it, and this should not go this way. And we have to give it to those both sides. Is a fine balance to be struck, because I'm sure no one has wanted for results to turn out in this way, but because we haven't done it before and we don't know how to approach it, how to govern it, we might end up in this situation. So we have to empower citizens to educate themselves and open up this and being brave to push back and activism, because we are already using algorithms across public services and we don't even know they're harming people, but we don't have the resources to go and audit, because auditing is as complex as building it. And again, we don't have the right skills. So allowing the citizens, or educating and empowering the citizens to signaling those cases when there might be an algorithm that discriminates or harms, allow us to identify where the problem lies and then go to fix it. I'm less worried about the number of those cases they come across. Actually, I would wish to see more, because the only way to solve it is that you become aware the problem exists somewhere, and then you put together a plan, a mitigating plan of the problems that exist.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. That's great. You mentioned auditing is a challenge, and we're actually seeing regulators thinking about auditing AI, like the ICO has come up with a framework, for example. What are your views on AI auditing? How wide will they be, and what should an AI audit look at?
Look, Luciano Floridi said at an event at the end of last year that this is the year of AI audit, and should be, right? It's the time for us to go and check whatever we have done, it's in accordance with some standards. But first, we don't have the standard. If you look at something like fairness, it's very difficult, because it's not only that we have about 30 definitions of fairness, so which one do you choose? But it's very contextual driven, and also mathematical fairness doesn't equal societal fairness, which is, again, an issue to be discussed. But there are two things here. Is while ICO is doing fantastic work, and they seem to be the only one that are addressing the hairy problem of audit of the AI, there are other institutions around the world that do algorithmic auditing, but not they're looking at AI audit, which is a little bit different. It looks a little bit broader than just the algorithm itself. The sad reality is that if we don't quickly come up with a robust regulatory regime, AI audit is not going to have the teeth that will require it. And we already have complaints from small startups that have stepped into the domain of auditing the algorithm and say, we've done it, but there's no way to bound companies to apply the fixes that we have suggested. So if we are to follow what we have done in financial auditing, where we have very robust laws, we have to do the same. Otherwise, it's going to be somehow, to a certain extent, useful exercise, but it's not. We're not going to be able to fix the real and the most profound problems.
Thank you, Maria. Stephen, what's your view?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Maria. I mean, the difference between AI and algorithms and the financial services sector is we've had hundreds of years to grow our regulatory framework and protect the public around financial services. This is an area that's changing very rapidly, and it's not just the development, it's the deployment, and we don't necessarily know where it is. So I think Maria's right, we do need a robust auditing system, but if we just take that one step back, if the development itself was against some sort of framework, some sort of standard, so that me as a user would be able to look for, let's use the kite mark example to say that this algorithm, this AI was developed along these guidelines, and that there was a body, there was a human in the loop who sat and examined each step of the development to ensure that it met those ethical and safety standards, and that it was, as far as it can be, trustworthy. It doesn't mean that we don't then audit it at some later point, but at least let's start with something we can put in place now to give us the confidence that at least we're trying to develop it in a reasonable and safe way.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, there's a question in the chat here for you. Are there any plans to help the public to engage more widely in this debate?
Yes, so one of the things we discuss quite regularly at the all-party group on AI is how we can improve public engagement. And I talk to ministerial colleagues, which has been difficult over the last year, to be fair, but in general, about how we can improve awareness. I have this dream of roadshows around the country in shopping centres, demonstrating how AI learns, what it can do, getting people excited about the opportunities. But I think Maria said earlier around data scientists and skills, that skills are, yes, there is those who are going to write the algorithms and the data scientists, but there are also skills required to understand what is possible, who then will decide on the strategic direction. And I think they also need to understand some of these rules and guidelines. If you're going to be a chief executive, a managing director of a small or a large business, AI is going to come across your desk at some point in the next 10 years, and you've got to understand what it can do, but also what it is safe to do with it. Just because we can do something doesn't necessarily mean we should.
Thank you, Stephen. Diversity of AI teams is another kind of topic that touches also on public engagement. Maria, we know that diversity in teams is important for building and operating AI. What can organizations do to increase diversity? Because it's probably not likely that we can hire ourselves out of the issue that we don't have diverse teams, and we need to encourage, for example, more women to join the field. But is there a way that helps organizations to collaborate and create diversity through collaboration?
I think I will say a little bit radical here, and I will say be honest, right? I think there's a little bit of disconnecting between the public narrative and the reality in the field. Just because you have the women at the table doesn't mean that they have a word to say in major decision. And that's very hard to change because we're talking about a male-dominating computer science. And I love what Stephen said and aligns with what I keep on saying. Just because we can, we should not. We should stop and think before we build anything. And part of that change in computer science philosophy is about allowing others with diverse view, not just women and people from different races, but all type of diversity, but then inclusion. So I'm less concerned about diversity because that can be a numbers game. It can be very easily demonstrated with percentages. But what I'm more interested in the inclusion. How do we actually, even if we don't have enough women because there's a shortage of women's data scientists, how do we make sure, as Stephen said, that data set, for example, we are using is representative for the population that, or the users that tool is being designed, and making sure that even if we don't have the right people present because of various, valid reasons, we are seeking to achieve inclusivity by other means, by including diverse opinion and challenging ourselves. So one way of going about it is about training the male guy to be thinking about women, right? The male developers. And I'm not sure that I've seen that, happening too much. But I think there are lots of solutions that work really well as long as there is a desire. That's what I link it back. Be honest as a leader. Be honest. Recognize you actually have a problem, and even if you bring a woman in your team, they will be hit by the cold walls of male-dominated software development teams. And whatever I talk to outside the AI field, that still resides. And there is a big issues we haven't even started to solve properly.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. Very good point. Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, you can't disagree with that. And Maria makes some very good points, but I do think what we do need to do is to at least start filling a talent pipeline that is more diverse than previously. And under another guise, I was the government's engineering envoy, and engineering covers this in some aspects. And again, there is underrepresentation by gender, by background, by ethnicity. It is starting to improve, but it will take a long time for that pipeline to be full and representative, and then for those people who come out of the pipeline to get into those leader positions where you can look at a team and say, yeah, that is representative of the community of which we all belong. But we have to start somewhere. So just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't try and do it. We have to start, I think, explaining in simpler terms why doing data science in a secondary school on a rainy Wednesday afternoon actually is potentially going to be the thing that cures cancer or finds a pattern or finds something that we haven't ever seen before. And I'm not sure that we make that link and get people excited enough about what data can potentially do.
We don't. You're so right, Stephen. This is when we run again another survey in PwC, when we set up a Tech She Can charter to encourage more women and girls to join a STEM career. This is what we've discovered, that a very small percentage actually understood that tech can deliver a positive outcome for society. So if it's just a matter of framing at a younger age, it's easy fixable, right? We have to go back and at a certain age group and demonstrate how, as you said, AI can actually help us cure cancer and solve the climate change they're so passionate about. So imagine taking the Greta Thunberg generation and saying, do you know why? AI technology can help us achieve that.
Absolutely. And there's a mission for all of us, is rather than talk to ourselves, is to talk to everyone else around us and get other people excited.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. That was a great discussion. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but because it's only the lunch break after us, I give you a 10-second final statement to wrap up. What's your most important thought around ethics of AI that you think we should be looking at now? Stephen, if you start.
Yeah, all I would say is that ultimately this is about people, and AI serves no purpose unless it serves us. And so therefore we have to make sure that it is working on our behalf, that it is trustworthy, that it is fair, and that it benefits us. It isn't just for the sake of the technology.
Thank you, Stephen. And Maria?
100% what Stephen said. I couldn't have said it better. So well done, Stephen. So we all agree. And again, kudos to you and Lord Clement Jones for the work you're doing in ABGGAI. And it's fair to say that it's such an important policy hub and a place where we encourage diverse opinion to come along. And we are hoping to do exactly many of the things that we've discussed today, including inspiring the young generation into stepping into AI and STEM-related careers. So,
thank you very much, Maria. Thank you, both of you. Massive thank you. That was a great discussion. We could have probably talked for hours. And I hope we get another opportunity soon. So thanks very much for joining us. And for everyone else on the conference here, we are now going into the lunch break. The program starts again at 1 o'clock. So enjoy your lunch and we'll see you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.